Hello there, my RPG lovers, and welcome to another video. It's been a while since we talked about Elex 2, and that's because I said I want to wait for some actual info about this game. So this video might imply that we have some news about the sequel, right? Well, no. We still don't have any official info about the game itself, but I really want to talk about this upcoming sequel. I'm pretty sure that we're going to get something soon, like an announcement, a teaser, trailer, or something like that. The last piece of information we got about Elex 2 was back in December of 2019. Well, kinda. This was when Piranha Bytes had to inform people on Twitter that they don't have anything to do with the remake of Gothic that got announced. They said the following: "We at Piranha Bytes are currently working high motivated with the entire team on a new RPG. At the moment, we are focused on our own work because we developed RPGs with passion and are looking forward to show you our own game. The announcement is scheduled for 2020. All things considered, we are pretty sure they're talking about Elex 2. The sequel to Elex was basically unofficially announced way back in 2017, shortly after Elex 1 released. Piranha Bytes was supported by the European Union with 150,000 euros, which pretty much confirmed that we're going to get a successor to Elex. That's definitely a nice financial boost for this small developer studio. In 2019, we got some major news when it comes to this developer. Piranha Bytes was acquired by THQ Nordic, which didn't come as a huge surprise to me. THQ Nordic has a lot of IPs under their belt. In 2018, they acquired Kingdoms of Amalur IP, and just recently we got an announcement for the remastered version of that game. It will have some gameplay improvements, but brand new expansion for the game as well. So I definitely think that THQ acquiring Piranha Bytes is a good thing. But let's talk about the actual sequel to Elex and what we can expect.
Not now! Take your business elsewhere!
There are a lot of improvements that I hope to see in the sequel. The only problem when it comes to this is Piranha Bytes' design philosophy for each new game. Well, quote-unquote problem, I just think there is a possibility that we're going to get something entirely different, so it can be hard to discuss about actual improvements. You can see what I mean if we take Risen franchise for example. The first Risen game established some strong fundamentals for the gameplay, but of course it still needed improvements. Rather than building upon the first Risen game and improving what was already there, Risen 2 was entirely different and arguably much worse in my opinion. The sequel brought its own set of unique problems which needed to be addressed. Technically, Risen 3 felt like an improved Risen 2 when it comes to the gameplay. What's perhaps the most interesting thing about Risen 3 was casting animations. This game had some pretty good animations for magic spells, and I quite enjoyed that aspect of the game. And then Elex came out and it basically had 2 casting animations for all spells. So I hope you understand why it's so hard to discuss about gameplay improvements when it comes to Piranha Bytes games. Those improvements are almost never linear. I guess the big factor when it comes to this is resource management and time. This is a small developer studio with around 30 people making huge open world RPGs. That's just a fact, but not an excuse for all the problems that the game had. I'm willing to bet they always recognize these problems, but due to the limited budget and development time, they have to settle with what they have. But let's specifically talk about some issues that Elex had and how could the sequel improve. Piranha Bytes is infamous for clunky combat system in their games. I briefly mentioned the gameplay in Risen 1 and how it had a strong foundation for a solid combat system. I think they should take a step back and take some notes from Risen 1. Judging by all the user reviews, comments and different videos I watched about this topic, it seems that most people who like their games share the same opinion. But the combat in Elex is actually really similar to Risen 1, at least the fundamentals of the system itself. All their games, except Gothic 3 I guess, have a combo system and they basically start building the rest of the combat system around it. I'm speaking about melee combat of course, we'll talk about ranged combat after this. Elex is the first game where Piranha Bytes decided to implement an aggressive stamina system. I think they could avoid a lot of frustrations if they simply made the stamina pool bigger in the beginning of the game. Even when you manage to pull off a complete combo, you'll almost never have enough stamina to use the special attack. And to add to the frustration, the stamina on enemies doesn't seem to work properly, and they can be extremely aggressive without getting tired. This immediately made some elemental effects like stasis completely useless. The whole experience becomes much better when you upgrade your stamina, get some better gear and a couple of levels. But a lot of people could easily quit the game before that. Especially those people who never played a Piranha Bytes game before. So if Elex 2 continues with the same stamina system, I just hope we get a bigger stamina pool in the beginning and functional stamina on enemies. Then we have bad hitboxes, especially on two-handed weapons and some bigger enemies. The range on some weapon swings is absolutely ridiculous. This needs to improve in the sequel. If the combat by itself wasn't so punishing, a couple of bad hitboxes here and there wouldn't be a huge problem. But this is not the case. If you want to play as a pure melee character, you can't afford a lot of errors, especially on higher difficulties. This actually inspired me to make some guides for combat back in 2017. If you actually learn how to dodge, evade and parry, you can pretty much kill everything in Elex as a low level character. But the skill cap for this kind of playstyle is ridiculously high. And I suppose that's fine, because the game is not meant to be played like that. But it's still there as an option. I remember that some people blamed animations for the bad combat experience in Elex. I personally didn't have issues with animations, except for a couple of them. Specifically two-handed mace thrust animations, but that's not a huge issue. I actually liked how different weapon types have unique combo animations. Some beasts have really awkward transition between animations, and they can accelerate way too fast. And combined with those bad hitboxes we mentioned before, this was very annoying to deal with. The ranged combat is much more accessible in general. This is the first time when Piranha Bytes included modern firearms in their game. Risen 2 and 3 had guns as well, but they didn't work the same. I'm not a huge fan of guns in RPGs, to be honest. The main thing that bothers me in Elex when it comes to guns is the same recoil animation that's used for pretty much all guns. And you could repeatedly stun enemies with special firing mode, which was kinda OP. But I was quite happy with the amount of different weapon types and gadgets that you could use in the combat. Same goes for the faction skills that you can learn. You have a lot of options for different playstyles, no matter what faction you join. I completed my first playthrough as a berserker and I used a bow as my main weapon. I wasn't really happy with the bow gameplay in general, it didn't feel how I expected. It had that same recoil animation and it wasn't really impactful. But it was still fun to play, don't get me wrong, especially when you get scattershot firing mode. I just prefer to pull the bowstring manually, like in Gothic 3, but since the combat in Elex is much faster, that would be hard to pull off. For the sequel, I want a slightly more impactful bow gameplay. If you play as a berserker, you can use a lot of spells instead, or go with a melee playstyle. Same goes for the clerics and outlaws, you have a lot of options. But, in my opinion, outlaws have the most boring set of skills that you can learn in the game. Most of them are passive effects, which is not that fun. For the sequel, I would want to see a lot more skills that you can learn, which are not connected to any faction. This would give the players the opportunity to start making a decent build before joining any faction. There is an option to try how faction exclusive spells work in Elex with certain items that you can find. But that's not enough, in my opinion. It's kinda hard to speculate about factions for the sequel because this could be done in a lot of ways. This is where we start talking about some spoilers, so if you didn't finish the game yet, you might wanna skip this part. The main story in Elex ended with a big cliffhanger. And not in a bad way, well, except the hybrid fight that was really bad to be honest, but besides that the ending was pretty good. It left us with a lot of questions like who are these aliens that will inhabit the planet and how is Elex connected to them? One thing is for sure, these aliens are supposed to be really powerful and just that fact alone will change a lot of things in the sequel. Factions will undoubtedly change a lot and I think there is a high possibility that we're not going to play as Jax in Elex 2. These are all speculations of course, but this seems really logical to me. We're going to get a time jump for sure, but we don't know exactly how big it will be. Although the hybrid said that these aliens will come in a couple of years, so a lot of things can happen before that. I would be really surprised if we get to play as Jax again, but if that happens, the only logical thing to do would be to import saves from Elex 1. There are just so many choices we had to make as Jax, and it would be only logical to transfer that in the sequel. And if they want to have joinable factions again, that would be really hard to pull off with Jax because he made his choice. It would be really cool to see him as an NPC in the game though. I don't know, it's really hard to speculate about this, the story can go in a lot of different ways. I was actually really surprised with the story in Elex because I didn't expect it to be that interesting. The sequel has the chance to make it even better. They have a great foundation for the story and a really unique setting. And what do you think about this? Leave a comment down below. We're going to talk about Elex 2 in the future videos as well, because there are a lot of things to discuss. To be honest, I just scratched the surface with this video. It would be nice to get that announcement for the sequel soon, so we actually have something specifically to talk about. But anyway, thanks for watching, and if you like this video, pressing the thumbs up button would mean a lot. Don't forget to subscribe for more content and click on the bell icon so you don't miss any future uploads. Special thanks to my Patreons, and if you as well want to support this channel in the long run, consider checking out those links in the description. That would be all, and I'll see you in the next one.